This is Because Teeth Podcast with Greg Santiago and Cody Preble. All right, so second episode.
Yep, back again, episode B.
I think a very interesting topic today for today's episode.
Bringing in a current topic, trending topic.
Current trending topic for sure. Brian Laundries dental records. So it won't be I don't think it's going to be too long of an episode, but you know, there's not too much to really go off of on that, but we'll touch on it a little bit, you know, and really just kind of like, I guess we don't get to talk about that much, especially as dental hygienists, you know, being into, you know, dental hygiene and going through this. We have a small section on forensic dentistry. So
yeah, very small. I only remember briefly talking about it. And I feel like everybody kind of has, like, I know at least when I started college, that side of me that at the beginning, freshman year, I wanted to do forensics. I thought that was like the most exciting thing. And
like in dentistry, you're saying, or just
no,
like in
just in general.
Yeah.
Like I think there's just so many shows and stuff on TV. You watch them all growing up, and then you find out, oh, my school has this, and then you want to jump in and go and do that. But
yeah, no, for sure. That's what, you know, like I was telling you, getting into, you know, that small section that we did like learn about it, like it really struck up a nerve. Like I didn't do too much research then, but like I did some research like now when we were like looking at, you know, like obviously like what was going on with this whole case and everything. Like how do you become, you know, like what classifies you to identify teeth, you know, from a body, you know?
Yeah.
And they're called odontologists. But that's their specific forte, and that is basically a lane that you can go into forensic sciences. So, you know, when people are, you know, they, like you said, they want to go into forensic sciences. Sometimes they don't know exactly what it's going to be. This is an avenue for them, and it's actually used for a lot of different things. So obviously it's, you know, it identifies, you know, bodies, but where does that apply? Like, you know, I think about it like, how are you doing that 5-6 days a week, you know? And basically they're doing like mass, you know, obviously like mass casualties. So whether it's a natural, you know, disaster like a tsunami or a hurricane or something of that nature, or like a building collapsing, you know, that's how they identify a lot of those bodies, because, you know, you can't identify them through their DNA. Like, so that's like the second, you know, like
yeah, fires, any kind of really traumatic event that is unfortunate as it is.
Yeah.
That's the way that it has to be done.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just crazy that to me, like, I don't know. Maybe if that was like brought up like early on, like, I don't know. I kind of like that stuff.
So is an odontologist, are they a dentist as well?
No. And that's why I kind of elaborated a little bit on it. I mean, I'm sure there's some that maybe like study or get licensed in it maybe after like towards their like retirement kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not really too sure on that, so I don't want to speak too much on that. But I do know, like I said, like it's just a lane of forensic scientists. So you don't have to go to dental school. If I'm not mistaken, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, whoever's listening, like, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure like you have zero basically, you know, dental, you know, requirements to get into that.
Yeah, you learn, and then they probably just take a couple courses or something.
Yeah,
in that specific field.
That's their specific. Their whole, you know, thing is just basically learning the morphology of, you know, the teeth and what it's going to be. You know, like everything. I mean, obviously, even starting basic tooth numbers. You know, so. Yeah, so I don't know. It was just kind of interesting to me to even like think about that, because you don't really talk about that much, you know? Like you would think like it's just dentists doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like you would think like maybe like some dentists, I mean, and maybe that is. I'm sure that's the case in certain, you know, aspects. Like I'm sure there's not odontologists in every city or every state, you know. I mean, my mindset would probably be like there's some type of traveling ones that like have different agencies or something
like somebody
like
who just like kind of comes to them and presents the case and be like, look, this is what we're working with, and then they kind of just get their assistance with it, and then they go back to the case.
Correct. And that's the same thing, like even when we were researching Brian Laundries' case, like going into his whole dental records, how they were talking about the teacher that they had interviewed about the, you know, how they identify the bodies through.
Yeah, about how it all kind of works.
Yeah, you know, so I'm sure they consult with other dentists and, you know, teachers and things like that. But that's like a whole job. Like it's a whole avenue of dentistry.
It's an interesting side. Like you said, it's not typically what you think of when you think of a dentist. You don't have to think of them doing that. But I remember the part that we touched on in school was about just charting, dental charting, and why dental charting is so important is because it can come back full circle around to something like this, where that chart might be what is needed to help identify somebody, and in a case when that's all they really have. That's what I remember talking about it mainly in school.
Yeah, no, and that's where the whole part of like it's so important, like you said, to chart it, but also chart it correctly. Like that's the legal
keep
side.
it up to date and everything.
Like, yeah, you can't if you're missing, like you got to make sure you got it on the right surface, because it can come down to later in life. And it's one of those things too, is like maybe it doesn't happen right away, but like you need to it could happen 70 years from now, or 60 years, 50 years from now, and they look back at that, chart that you created, and it's like, well, his teeth have this and this. Okay, well, this is not this person's, so it's really important to make sure you get it right kind of, the first time. And that's one thing that that's their talk, that's our instructors' talking point when they're teaching us, dental charting and stuff, because you got to make sure you do it right, because sometimes it's like one of those things. You're like, DF, MF, same thing, right? Like, kind of thing. Yep. It's not. Like, you got to make sure you get it right. So, but yeah, so we'll dive into, I guess, just go right into his whole, actual specific case of why he was identified through his dental records.
Yeah, so basically he was found in a swamp, where his remains were found kind of in a swamp preserve area. I believe it was in Sarasota, outside of Tampa.
Yeah, it was a natural preserve. I do remember that. I don't remember the name of it, though.
Okay, yeah, I don't have the name either. But it's usually an area where there are high water levels, and because the remains were there for a bit of time, and with the water, it kind of, I guess, made the regular DNA that's usually identified through kind of fragile, and that's why they didn't go to the DNA specifically, but had to look into the dental records.
Which is crazy to think about, because, let's, I guess, just dive into that a little bit. Like, we were talking about, the whole charting. Like, obviously, restorations play a factor of that, of how they identify it. So I'm wondering, what the specifics, we can't see that yet, but I'm sure later down the road, even his specific case is going to be probably in a dental book at some point, just because it was a pretty big case, and that's all they've, identified him by.
Yeah, I was trying to locate that out there. I thought that'd be kind of cool for us to see, but
it won't be released right now. It's going to take a while before we actually get to seeing that side of it. But yeah, we'll see that at some point, I'm sure, so I'm actually interested to kind of see that. And that was the other thing too. I actually looked into some other different autopsy reports of that showed why the teeth are identified through their restorations and stuff. And it's sometimes hard too, because like you said, the natural, for example, fires and stuff, it sometimes melts some of these restorations as so far as let's say they have a temporary crown or something, that stuff melts. So they have to there's an extent of it as well. So I think the biggest thing, and I noticed even with his case specifically, was the rotation of the teeth. And they focus on basically the anterior portion of basically the rotation, because most people have rotated teeth. I have my lower anterior rotated a little bit, so that's how they identify. So there's specific rotations that they know that it was that you can document and see off of the x-rays. And that's another good point too, the x-rays.
Oh yeah, the x-ray side of things. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, because that's how they correlate it. It's part of their file, not just the little chart that we click and identify, but we're using the x-rays. You're correlating the x-rays with the actual teeth that you have at hand, or that they had at hand, basically, which is so it's rotation. And the other biggest thing is the occlusion. So it's identifying basically through their bite. So they obviously, I don't know how that exactly works, if they take impressions and they basically make a bite reg, identify their bite kind of thing, or if it's just basically the occlusal wear. Because I do know it is the occlusal wear, and it's the occlusion. So it's the classification.
Well, that's what I was thinking, overjet, overbite, kind of the
correct
class 1, class 2, whatever it is for that person, just the general bite. I don't think they're doing an impression on them, you think?
Well, yes and no. Like, I don't think they can. Like, obviously, you know, like they can't get like an actual, but I think that there might be some form of it. Like they might pour it into a cast to kind of see how it comes out. So I don't think it's like they actually like are like taking an impression, you know, kind of thing. But yeah. So I think that is you know, the gist of like how they kind of identify. Like, and his specifically was the rotated anterior teeth, and also the occlusion was how they kind of knew it was him, because from what I when I was obviously looking into it was that he possibly had a twin.
Oh, here we go. Play the conspiracy music.
We need the conspiracy music going here, but yeah, that he had a twin. So people were saying that there was somebody that was like that. It just wasn't, you know. And that it wasn't like, obviously he had a sister, but they were saying that it could be like a twin that they identified the body that was similar to his or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think that was the whole kind of like conspiracy part.
Okay.
Like, that it was kind of like a decoy in a way.
And did you look into like, would a twin say have the same kind of, like say if there were twins, would they kind of have the same morphology of teeth?
No. And that's the thing. Like, even identical twins, they don't.
Okay.
So, and it comes down to whether it's restorations. I mean, one, it can be simple as one has a you know, a full, you know, crown, or one has a, you know, kind of thing. But even if they don't, even let's say they have no restorations and they're just, basically it's their actual teeth, and, you know, but it comes down to the rotations. They don't grow in the same, you know? So it has something to do with their actual, I mean, it's their anatomy. It's just different. I mean,
yeah,
they can have the same exact structure. It could be the same exact size, but is it the same texture? You know, kind of thing as well, you know, because they're not, I mean, granted, most identical twins grow up together, but let's say they don't, or let's say, you know, one got hit by a baseball or something.
Yeah, those similarities can only go so far, even with taking care of your teeth. One might take care of it a little more than the other. One might be a flosser twice a day, and the other might floss once a week. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So it only goes so exactly. I mean, maybe like as a newborn, you know, like they'll be exactly the same for so long. You know, like maybe like their primaries might grow in very similar, but even then, it's the fraction of a millimeter that I feel like can make a difference. You know, so, but yeah. So, anyways, his he was identified obviously through his teeth, and that was basically the biggest part of their cases, like kind of like closing that chapter of it, because that was like the biggest thing. Like, where was he at? You know, like where was he hiding? Where was, you know, and that was basically the closing factor of where he was, you know?
Yeah. And after that, you kind of really didn't hear much more about the case. I mean,
yeah, I mean, that's it. That was the whole thing. Like they just like wanted, you know, justice, and that actually is a good talking point too, because that is the biggest part of like the forensic dentistry side of like the odontologist. Like, if you read the definition of what forensic odontology is, or odontologist is, it's basically bringing to justice. Like, it's identifying the anatomy of, you know, the different teeth and bringing it to justice, basically.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole point of it.
Oh, so. Yeah. In this case, it was the final thing that kind of solved the case of if it was him or not.
Yeah.
With those remains.
But anyways, I wanted to also dive into a little bit more too of what that actually is, like a little bit more in detail, because I obviously, like, it intrigued me. This was my nerd side coming out. You know, I kind of briefed you on it, but identifying like bodies like male and female, like through their...
They can tell something like that too?
So there's certain, like I was saying, there were certain... basically indices that they put these, you know, whether it's their teeth or, you know, it's whatever it is, there's certain indices that they put them into to classify them into that male or female range. So if they fall into a range, then yeah, that's how they identify them, which is kind of crazy. I mean, a tooth could be identical, but it's an overall, you know, like of, you know, I don't know, it could be something like
Like there might be a certain characteristic of that tooth. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like there could be a certain characteristic that, a lot of, let's say females typically fall into a certain indice, so it's kind of like a category that they're using to place them in and kind of breaking it out. So it's not like if they have this, they're a female. That's not how it is. I mean, that would just be a pretty straightforward thing, which that would actually be kind of cool. But that might come later down the road. I feel like at some point, maybe not directly male and female, but the next point would be like, I was looking into like ethnicities, like identifying people's, dental records through, and correlating it with their ethnicity.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because I was gonna say even like geographically too. I think I've heard that is also
well, that's kind of ties into
because even like diet and what they eat and just where that whole environmental factor of it.
Yeah, that all ties
play
in
a
together.
part. Okay.
Yeah, because that brings it back to like, where, like you said, like it could be something they're fluoride in the water, or it could be, it could be a number of things, certain thing that they eat, like you said, and it could be nutrition, something of that sense that ties it to that individual, ethnicity or, race or, it could be anything, which is crazy to think about. Like you can identify somebody all over the world. Like think about that. Like you can be on a complete another side of the world and you can identify like where they're from.
Yeah, all based on the tooth.
All based on their teeth, which is wild to think about, and that's why
all because teeth, huh?
All because teeth. Which for me, like also too, like I really liked it, to kind of step back a little bit of like the whole like bringing it to justice. Like that's why they do that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I think it's amazing that they're able to do that because that helps. Like if they didn't have that, then how would they identify the bodies? Like I feel like I think maybe dentistry is an easy way in a way, but like as far as like looking at their x-rays and knowing like they have like this or that, kind of thing. But because if they didn't have that, like they wouldn't be solving a lot more cases or, identifying bodies as quick as they can, like during certain like emergencies, like, so, like for example, this happened not too long ago. The building that went down in Miami, that condominium,
Yep.
Some of those people were they didn't know where their family was that had lived in that building, so like it's kind of like a time thing, like as far as quick as they can do it. So I thought that was pretty cool, like that they can tie that in. Because,
yeah, it's interesting for it to be that part of it. Like what else would they really have to turn to?
Yeah. Which I actually wish that maybe somewhere down the road, like I would like to see or know. So if there's any like hygienists, like even maybe like different parts of the world that maybe they study that stuff, or maybe they have like different, maybe they consult in certain things, like and kind of talk with certain forensic scientists. Maybe there's no ontologists in a certain part of the world that they work with their dentists and their dental hygienists, or I think that would be cool. So
to kind of hear some of those differences and things that they're looking for, and that would be a cool thing to hear.
Yeah, for sure. So if we could get somebody on like that, that would be super cool to kind of like really pick their brain about that. Mm-hmm. That'd be awesome. Cause I would like to know that like in depth, like what are they looking at like on those teeth? Like as far, obviously like restoration is going to be the big one.
Yeah.
We talked about like the rotation. We talked about, occlusal wear, occlusion. But what more? Like, do they put it under a microscope? Do they test certain things? Like, do they, let's say, cut the tooth in half? Do they break down like the actual?
Yeah, and how many like teeth do they have to look at to identify to really confirm that, hey, this is this person? Because a tooth, I guess, things could happen to that tooth, depending on the situation. But how many teeth does it actually take to say, like, definitively, yes, this is who it is, like to identify them? Yeah,
there's got to be like a minimum requirement, like or like requirements that actually kind of like put them like say, okay, like we're done here kind of thing.
Yeah, like is it a quadrant? Is it a sextant? Is it
that would be
multiple quadrant? Like
I'm sure we can probably look into that a little bit, but I think that would just be cool to really pick someone's brain who does that every day or every so often or whatever, because we don't get to ever really see that part of it. So, or maybe there's some hygienists that kind of like retire. I feel like that would be like a good thing to like kind of retire. Like if you can't clinically work, like kind of go into that.
Yeah, and put your knowledge back to use with it.
Yeah, just kind of like tie it in. That might be an avenue.
It might, yeah. It's something I didn't even honestly think about before.
Yeah, but that's like one of those things. I feel like that's like kind of like the goal of like this podcast too, is like kind of like dissect those things, because that can be, because they don't talk about that with us, like.
Yeah, like we said, we just barely briefly touch on it real quick. And because, I mean, for most people, like in school, like this isn't what your goal is to go and do right now.
Yeah.
But down the road, like we said,
yeah,
it might be.
I feel like that would, I mean, I probably wouldn't say that there's probably that many hygienists that would like to do that per se, but I feel like that would be like a really good thing for like dental lab techs.
Yeah.
Like they know, they study that, like they're working directly with an individual tooth or crown or, denture or, that stuff all day. So they can really.
Someone that's a little bit more familiar doing that all day, every day.
Exactly.
Having that exposure to it.
They just look at it different,
That's true.
and they're looking at it different all day. So I think that would be like definitely something that maybe they get, taught about that in detail a little bit more kind of thing. Like, or maybe dental lab techs can do some type of like, I don't know, interesting. We got to look into that a little bit, because that would be cool. Like definitely, I feel like a whole nother episode.
Yeah, definitely way more into dental anatomy for sure.
Oh yeah.
Like,
dental anatomy specialist. That's what we're gonna call it, because that is like, the cusp of cerebelly.
You would know every little ridge and line and everything on that tooth.
You're gonna have to. I mean, that's which is cool, because like I know, like when I was teaching in the dental assisting program that I was teaching at, one of our exams was basically you identify the tooth with an actual, like, it's some of them we had them, obviously like sterilized teeth, but we also had, like the typodont teeth. So like you'd literally like, pick up a tooth and say, okay, what kind of tooth is this, or what tooth number is this? So, I mean, we didn't really have that in dental hygiene physically, but I think
we didn't have it because of COVID. We were on Zoom for it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that I think normally would have been a part of the class, and I think that's even like your final, like your practicum in that class. Like I've heard they have them laid out, and you kind of walk over to it. Like I remember in anatomy, we did that same thing. You walked over with the bone, and you kind of looked at it, and you kind of got to feel it and look at it and all the different features of it, and then you had to write down what it was. I think we just missed out on that.
Yeah,
it would have been kind of, because ours, remember, it was like a piece of paper that we got to do.
Yeah,
it wasn't the same.
Freaking COVID, man. But yeah, so like I said, that for dental assisting, that was like a practicum. So I'm sure we would have had it if it wasn't for COVID. I remember actually talking about it as well. But yeah, I remember just obviously knowing the pictures and knowing the definitions and stuff. That was a lot in itself. But yeah, so I guess that's really it for
what we have on that case. We knew we didn't have too much, but I think we got to dive into that topic a little more, and
for sure,
that was a good discussion.
Definitely. Well, I mean, we got to run into our segment. So.
We do. So you ready for segment time?
I guess so.
All right. Everyone, here's Greg's term of the week. We have it coming up. Dental terms 102.
All right. So my term is kind of simple, but it kind of is related to what we were speaking about. So it could be kind of like a couple word thing. And what I'm going to say is the word is hyperdontia.
Hyperdontia.
And we're going to have another word right after that one.
Oh, we got multiple words.
Yeah. And it kind of all ties together.
Hyperdontia.
So break it down. What does hyper mean?
Hyper is like a lot.
Exactly.
Or many.
So what is dontia?
It's a tooth.
Exactly. So put it together.
Oh, many teeth?
Yeah. It's basically just having like...
Is it the formation of many teeth?
No, it's actually having extra teeth.
Oh, okay.
So it's having a lot of teeth. Hyperdontia.
Oh.
So,
I was overthinking that one for sure.
That's what I was trying to tell you. Just break it down, dude. But the reason why I wanted to say that there's multiple kind of words, because that ties in with so many things. I mean, obviously, like the dontia, that can go on to so many things. So another word would be like macrodontia.
Small tooth.
Opposite. Macro.
Oh, I was thinking microdontia, because I know that was another one that we learned.
Yeah.
So macro is actually like a larger tooth.
Correct. Same thing. So microdontia, and then you have
and also real quick with macrodontia, going back to gemination after I researched that term a little bit more in depth.
Oh, you're bringing it back.
So gemination is a extra larger tooth, or a tooth that is larger.
Yeah.
Similar to macrodontia.
Yeah.
Just wanted to add that in real quick.
Yeah, there you go. Last episode. Go listen if you haven't. But yeah, and then actually hyperdontia is also polydontia. So same thing. Means the same thing. So hyper and poly, same thing.
Okay. And I feel like also tying that back to our topic was if someone has an extra tooth in the mouth, that also could be a key factor that they're looking for.
Yeah, that's where I was going. You kind of took my shine on that.
Yeah.
But it's all right. That's where I was going with that, because that is the thing, you know, like even like maybe like missing certain teeth, like, you know, that's a big part of it. But yeah, having that extra tooth, that's a clear indicator. Like not everybody has that.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, even all my, you know, as many patients as I've seen, honestly, I want to say probably a handful, probably like 5, maybe less, that I've seen with actually like extra teeth, like, you know, like, and you know, like a primary tooth, like an extra primary tooth that's still there.
Oh yeah.
That they leave, you know, their whole life kind of thing. That kind of stuff too. 'Cause that kind of goes hand in hand too. But yeah, so I've only seen, I mean, I'm in 4 or 5 years now. So seeing only 4 people, that's pretty specific, you know? So,
it's a bit more of a rarity. Yeah,
exactly.
Definitely help picking out or identifying.
So I'll say one more word as far as the dontia, and then we'll end it. Toroidontism.
That's not the bull's
Yeah,
tooth,
you
is
got
it?
it. Yeah, I saw you were getting ready to say it, and it's like, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what it is.
It's like the shape of it is like a bull's tooth.
So it's saying the actual definition is abnormally long pulp, severe bend in long axis of the tooth.
Okay.
Oh, wait. I read that wrong. It's bowl-like teeth having abnormally long pulp, chamber, and short roots. Short roots is the key.
Short roots. So that's why on a X-ray it kind of looks like bull horns.
Exactly.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
See. So, but
nice.
You got to remember the donchism part.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of like breaking down like so many words. Like that's our boards right there. We gotta break down those words, you know. So, but yeah, so that's the word of the day. Anything you want to like kind of touch on as far as the episode today before we kind of close it out?
I think that's about all I've got for this one.
All right.
I think that was a good episode. I did enjoy that topic.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to say is, so right now the first couple episodes are going to be released on YouTube, but we're basically going to put a clip on top of it. Reason is being run into some technical difficulties, but we do plan to have a video podcast at some point. We're just working through that part of it.
Yeah, still working out the kinks of all of this.
Yeah, so we're still learning. We've learned stuff every day. I mean, how many times have we kind of come up with certain things that we're like, oh, now we got to figure out this. Yep. So we're still working through that. But please, you know, like and follow us, you know, on Instagram. Definitely like the video if you're listening to it on YouTube. We appreciate you like listening to it and not just, you know, even though it's not an actual video. So I do want to say thank you for that. And then also, you know, follow us on actual podcasts. So
all of our Spotify, Apple Podcast listeners.
Yeah, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You know, we appreciate you guys. Make sure you follow us so that way you can see when our new episodes are uploading. We're gonna stay pretty consistent with it. You know, basically until we like really have boards, because we're gonna have to take a little bit of a break during boards because we're just gonna have to really focus. Time. Yeah, it's gonna be crunch time. Hopefully,
otherwise, it's just gonna be a whole episode of dental terms, unless they want that, you know.
Hey, we might need that, but yeah. So we appreciate you guys, you know, listening to all of us on all these different platforms. Whatever you're listening to it, you know, we appreciate it. And other than that, you know, if there's anything you guys want to reach out to us about, anything you want to talk to us about, if you want to get on the podcast, we'd really appreciate it. We're trying to get some people on here, and we can do it, you know, it doesn't have to be basically in person. We can kind of correlate and work it out. So
yeah, let us know what you thought of this topic as well. Just kind of having the, not really like true crime style, but any cold cases, autopsies, we're just bringing that side of it to this and kind of bringing in, I guess, other dental related topics or words, or what am I trying to say?
Yeah,
here?
like just like any ideas you have for us, like as far as the episode titles or this topic specifically, like the cold cases, like you
yeah,
said,
like to tie it back in how we did. We brought it in with terms and stuff that we know.
Yeah, exactly. So if there's anything that you guys want us to kind of touch on, we'll definitely like entertain it.
Yeah.
No guarantees, but we'll definitely entertain and we'll see what we can do to kind of make an episode out of it. And other than that, we appreciate you guys, and we'll
I think that about wraps it up for today. So
that's it. Let's get out of here.
Tune back in next time for episode C. Why do we do it?
Because teeth.